Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline. My guest this evening is Shan Yahampath, who's the advisor to the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment. Very good evening to you, Shan, and welcome to the program.
Good evening to you, Faraz.
Thank you very much. Obviously, in the context of the economic conditions that we are facing in Sri Lanka, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of gratitude for people who actually go abroad and send the money back. But I'd like to ask you, how safe and secure are our fellow citizens when they go abroad on contract work?
Thank you very much, Faraz, for inviting us and having me here today. If you are going through a registered recruitment agency through a job order which has been authenticated by the mission of the destination country, the Sri Lankan mission in the destination country, you are 100% safe. Right. When you say 100% safe, there could be job-related accidents, there could be certain incidents, those are inevitable.
Yeah.
But as far as your life is concerned, your job is concerned, if there are any issues in a job contract and whatnot, those things can be taken care of by the Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau.
So basically, it's a safe level playing field.
It is.
If you go through and so on. Yeah. And how much the candidate's supposed to pay the Bureau of Foreign Employment?
If you are registering as a migrant worker, it is something like 18,000 rupees.
Right.
That is for a period of whatever the job contract that you have.
Right. And these are paid up front?
Up front.
Okay. What about insurance? Do you provide insurance as well?
We don't provide insurance, but they have to pay for the insurance. Okay. It could be either paid by themselves or by the employer.
Okay.
But for the domestic sector, it is compulsory. They have to pay up front, without which they can't go.
Recently, we've seen, I interviewed the Sri Lanka High Commissioner in London. I read in the press, I think members of your ministry have been to Poland, where you are able to use your Sri Lankan driving license or exchange it. So does this automatically, does it follow that it will follow with more job opportunities? It
definitely would. There are proactive activities that every Sri Lankan mission in the world can take in terms of promoting foreign employment. There are certain bilateral agreements that we have with certain countries which have not been renewed.
Yeah.
So all these countries have an acute shortage of skilled workers in certain categories. So our missions can play a proactive role to capitalize on these opportunities and communicate the same with the Foreign Employment Bureau, so that we can ensure we talk to the right stakeholders within Sri Lanka and ensure people are ready to go.
Is it a good, if somebody's looking for work, if they were to look at foreign employment, is that a good option, or is it like the last of the options?
Well, but that depends on your individual aspiration. For us, I can't say whether it is good or bad. I myself have been abroad and worked, and I greatly value the exposure, the kind of people that I have worked with, the technologies that I was exposed to. If you look at the complexity of certain industries, those industries actually don't provide a sufficient exposure to new technologies, work practices, and whatnot. So if you work for leading companies in the world, it could be in the Gulf region, it could be elsewhere, you get to learn a lot of things which you can bring back home and share with other co-workers in the country. So if most of individuals who have an aspiration to go up in the career ladder, at one point of time in their life they decide on embarking on a foreign employment. I think that's a good decision in my opinion. Especially as a youngster, if you can go abroad, if you can see the world, you can see what we see here is not the world. So there are enough and more opportunities that you can see. I think that opens up your mind for new opportunities.
What about the fears of parents who don't want their children to go abroad because they're frightened of whatever might happen?
I mean,
how do you temper that? What advice do you give parents who say, look, come on?
see, we are in the 21st century. We are connected in multiple ways. Unlike those days, you can reach out to anyone within a couple of seconds. You can learn, their whereabouts, what they're up to and whatnot. So, it's virtual. So we are virtually connected 24/7. I don't think, you have to have some sort of fear in your mind. But, there are vulnerabilities even if you are here or elsewhere. Those are inevitable again.
Right.
I don't think it is something that we have to take into seriously, but probably our cultural norms might play as a barrier in certain cases.
And these, these cultural challenges about family values and so on, I suppose they're not as bad as pre-WhatsApp and pre-technology days, because now you can actually see your children, you can talk to them and so on.
That's right, yes. So I think we have to use technology to facilitate this modern development. And, especially if you look at labor mobility from that perspective, as I mentioned earlier, the development of the entire world is as a result of labor mobility. People tend to travel from A to Z, looking for new opportunities. So if you don't find opportunities here, probably you can go elsewhere. I think parents nowadays should let their children travel, see the world, so that they get to enjoy their life on one side, and they can have a better life on the other side, and they can definitely bring back an enormous amount of work experience and exposure, as I mentioned earlier.
And what benefits do migrant workers get from the government here in Sri Lanka?
Their remittance is not taxed. It has never been taxed.
Okay.
So it's tax-free. It is something that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
Until recently, the central bank has been paying 2 rupees per dollar.
Yeah.
That has been amounted to a little bit over a few billions on an annual basis.
So that's like a premium they get.
Yes. On top of the exchange rate, they get a fee. And recently we started giving them an electric car permit depending on their remittance that they have sent through formal channels. They can utilize 50% of what they have remitted to buy an electric car, number one. Number two...
They won't get it, is it tax-free then?
It is not tax-free though. You have to pay the regular taxes that are in place. But nowadays you don't get to import cars, given the dollar crisis we have been experiencing. But to encourage those who work abroad to send money through legal channels, we started this scheme last September. You can utilize 50% of remittance that you send to buy an electric car, and on top of that you of course have to pay the taxes that are in place.
Duties.
That's right, duties.
So the other question I want to ask you is, amongst these, these benefits from compared to the past, these are very good because, you're giving them more. But what about this subject of, most Sri Lankans are quick to start talking politics. It's like in our blood. So what about the right to vote if you're working abroad? Right now, I believe if we Sri Lankans live abroad, if you want to vote, you better come back here and vote from here. But that's not always possible. People are working abroad. What plans for that?
That has been a concern that has been debated many times, as far as I know. But what I can say is that the Bureau is in the process of putting up a comprehensive information system connecting destinations, countries, and migrant workers. Perhaps that could be the first step, even though it is coming under the purview of the Foreign Ministry. where they have to get our citizens to come to the nearest mission and let them vote. I have no idea as to why it has not been discussed in the past, but there haven't been any proactive actions on the side of successive governments. But it is a right, something that we have to acknowledge, and I'm sure with the digitalization agenda of the incumbent government, that will be a reality very soon.
And do our migrant workers have special benefits in terms of customs duties and so on?
Yes. Now, traditionally, depending on the number of days you spend overseas, on your arrival, you get a duty-free allowance. But what we wanted to do is to do that calculation based on your remittance that you send through formal channels. So we have set up a committee, we have done a number of discussions, we have done a report on that, and then we have run it through the Treasury. Unfortunately, there are certain bureaucratic delays, and it has not been fully utilized, fully communicated. The benefits have not yet been gone to the migrant workers fully.
What sort of thank you, by the way, for your questions that have been sent across earlier as well. 0772 300 305. When the controllers are ready, they'll play a card. But anyway, how many fellow citizens are working abroad?
It's something like 1.3 million to 1.7 million.
Right.
During the COVID pandemic, a lot of people came down. Some people lost their job. But we have been maintaining a little bit over 1.3 million people all around the world. Yeah, and last year we sent about 312,000. That is the highest ever recorded in our history. And this year we are likely to hit 300,000.
What about remittances? How much are we still down? Are we up? Are we better?
We can improve. We are picking up. As of now, we have done about a little bit over 3.3 billion US dollars.
Okay.
The highest we have recorded is a little bit over 8 billion US dollars per annum.
That was before the COVID?
Before the COVID.
Okay.
But we are trying to hit something like 1 billion US dollars per month. So that is 12 billion per annum. That's the target that we are working on.
Is that for which year then?
That's the target that we are trying to achieve. Probably next year onward. With certain initiatives we have taken, we hope that it would be a possibility.
And I think on that note, let's go for a quick break and take a peek at this evening's headline news from that wonderful primetime news team. And I believe that today the news is read by the wonderful Mariam and somebody else. I can't remember the name, but we'll find out after the break.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV.
Sri Lanka and Singapore ink MOU on carbon credits. Strict legal action against those who take law into their own hands, says Public Security Minister. Minister Bandula tells Parliament that President said cabinet approval was not necessary to lease Channel I airtime to Leica Group. Water was used for electricity generation, disregarding the weather predictions. Prime Minister says to consider drinking water requirements a top priority. State Minister Premalal Jayasekara lashes out, says will reveal corruption at Ministry.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
And welcome back to Newsline. Tonight's news is being read by Mariam and my colleague from Newsline, Charlene Benedict. There you go. My guest this evening is Shan Yahampath, from the advisor to the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment. Then, Shan, tell me, there was a few questions that we had. How's the level of people being fleeced off, candidates who get caught to unauthorized job things, people saying, oh, I can get you out to Japan if you pay me 3 million, and so on and so forth, and people just go there. Sometimes they go there, sometimes they never get there. But basically people getting caught out. What's how can you all help bring those figures down? What are those figures right now?
Well, it was very high last year, but we have been doing a lot of public awareness campaigns across the country using media, and we also have a joint committee with the defense to set up anti-human trafficking committee. And then yesterday we opened a new unit at the airport to educate people. But if you look at as to why people get caught, these are the people who are looking for shortcuts, especially those who are not competent. Let's say now we have a rule: if you are going as a domestic worker, if you have a child below the 2 years of age, you can't go. So if you want to go, then you have to go through an illegal channel. So probably they might try to go through visit visa. Or if you are overage, if you have no qualifications, probably you do certain things and then you ensure that you go through visit visa and then you get in trouble. So we have been educating people not to fall into that trap.
But speaking to people who ordinarily remit money through the banking system, so sort of official, one of the things they point out is that sending money through the non-banking system is usually much more convenient. A young man from the Seychelles told me that his money is delivered to his mum, and when his mum is at home and she doesn't have to wait in by appointment, they come and it's very easy. Whereas the rest of the system is rather bureaucratic.
As well as our banking penetration is a little bit over 40%. 60% of our people are yet to engage in formal banking. And also if you look at using ATM cards, online banking and whatnot, it has been less than 30%. So convenience, especially in rural sectors, is a plus point. Let's say if your son or daughter living abroad, working abroad, if you want to send money across, if one can deliver, if banks can do that, people would do. They would send money through formal channels. That is one reason as far as our country is concerned. Something that we hardly discuss is that if you look at, unfortunately I don't have the data from last year, but in 2021, the amount of money that was transferred among developed countries in terms of remittance is 404 billion. Of that, 7.9% has been the cost of sending remittance, like commissions and whatnot. So that is something like 32 billion of the remittance has been spent on transferring money. Now, for an individual, that commission is a considerable amount of money. Probably they could use an informal channel to send money on top of the convenience that they are looking for. So, banks and government should work together to bring down the cost of remittance. That again has been a challenge all over the world in terms of promoting remittance through legal channels.
Has the wind been taken out of the sails of the Hawala system?
I think if you look at the difference in terms of what is offered by the banks and in the informal channels, it is negligible now. But, as we discussed earlier, there could be other reasons. Exchange rate itself is not a crucial factor. There could be other factors as well. Some people are organized in terms of facilitating these illegal ways of transferring money. It could be due to money laundering, illegal money. There are various sources. So probably, they want to hide their illegally earned money elsewhere. So those organized groups work closely to ensure the convenience that some people are looking for is properly facilitated. So for them, it's a market opportunity.
And what about trying to get even more jobs and so on? But how does one reach the balance? you know, you all have initiatives where you're like increasing the potential for employment overseas. We saw you in Poland.
Yeah.
The High Commission in London told us what that's happening over there. And there's a big market where looking for care, you know, elderly care and all that. But in between all that, how do you balance the concerns of this brain drain or the skilled worker drain?
For us, for a policymaker, using remittance as an economic factor has been a policy dilemma. Now, where to draw the line? How do we find the balance is a question. But it is an area most of countries depend on. As an example, India did about 100 billion last year. That is something like 2% of their GDP. But that is the highest ever done by a country. If you look at a country like Philippines, 9% of their GDP is contributed by remittance, foreign workers. You know, we can look at skill exports through foreign workers as one of economic contributing factors to the development of our economy. The concern, as you mentioned, whether people are leaving. Some people are leaving, but some people are coming back. Now, you know, brain drain it has to be discussed in the context of migration. It is one of the factors in remittance, in migration. Some people work and they come back. Yeah. And the exposure, experience and learning, whatnot I mentioned, they bring it back home. Whereas we have a set of individuals who would never come back, and in fact they are going through skill migration, looking for permanent residence in certain countries. That is the portion that we need to be worried about, that we need to regulate. As you know, for a fact, skill migration in our country is not regulated. No one knows. So the public money spent on public education on these individuals is going to be a waste. You know, country will never recover that amount. So we recently advised the secretary of the ministry to put forward a cabinet paper to bring skill migration under the purview of the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment. And also we are in the process of reforming the labour laws of our country through a single employment act. And we are trying to bring skill migration also under that. And also one of the concerns that people have when we have people leaving excessively, how can we run our companies? So just like any other developed country for us, we have to look at the option of inbound migration. Now, how do we know how many people, what kind of people do we require? We don't have labour market data. So two initiatives we have taken as a ministry. Number one is to develop a national labour market information system that would capture the working life and after working life of individuals, and then you know, trace their payments, their statutory contributions, their skill levels, reskilling and upskilling requirements and whatnot. We as a country never had a labour market policy after independence. So, you know, in terms of childcare, aging population, housing cost, skill migration, those areas were never rationally looked at. So we are in the process of, with the technical assistance of ILO, putting up a labour market development policy, and also through the labour market information system, we are trying to determine, when we have people leaving the country, how many opportunities should be made available for outsiders. So there are certain low-skilled jobs that can be facilitated through certain other individuals from certain other countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Not necessarily we have to depend on our own people. So inbound labour is something that we are seriously looking at, and that is also included in our new Employment Act. And
we have a question. Thank you very much for having sent it in. And that is that, you know, you're just looking at it from a historical perspective, this question. World Cup, Qatar. According to this, it says that an unusual amount of Sri Lankan people died, although when they receive the visas, only the fit and able get the thing. It's not, the life expectancy in Qatar is comparable to Sri Lanka. I think Sri Lanka is about 78 and Qatar is a little bit lower than that. But a bulk of these people who died after, in the period that Qatar was hosting the World Cup
Yeah.
and building. And an unusual number of Sri Lankans, over 200,
Yeah.
have died, saying that they died of natural causes. That sounds to me a little bit odd. Is there a particular, was there or has there been a situation?
It
Qatar?
has been reported not only Sri Lankans.
Yes.
It was mainly due to the heat waves that Qatar experienced during that time. But in terms of health concerns, this is something we have looked at seriously. In fact, we advised the chairman of the Foreign Improvement Bureau recently to look into it. When individuals go to Gulf countries,
Yeah.
they have to get their medical done through a specific, rather certain medical institute.
Yeah.
That is common for every single country that is sending people to Gulf countries. So we have been informed and brought to attention about certain malpractices, about the credibility of these medical reports. Let's say if you find positive here, you find negative in a different center run by the same service provider. So this is also not regulated, unfortunately. So we are in the process of getting legal advices to see how we can regulate these medical service providers to ensure the safety of our people.
Thank you so much for your questions, but some of them I can't take because this is rather a serious program, so I can't have jokes, all right? But thank you for sending the questions in anyway. Finally, what do you think? Over the next year, will we reach our historical limits in terms of remittances again?
We are likely.
I'm asking this question on behalf of the Governor of the Central Bank.
We are likely.
Yeah.
But we have to be proactive. We can't be traditional bureaucrats. I speak as a policymaker and someone who's working with a progressive-minded politician, in the incumbent minister. So we are trying to do things for the betterment of the country. Probably we'll have to do certain things which are not traditional. So if you are to reach the goals of our targets, we have to push our limits a bit harder, and we are hopeful that we will be able to do that.
Are you concerned about ChatGPT and AI? Are you concerned that those apps will take over and impact on the labor market?
Good question there. There's a research suggesting that 35% of manual jobs done by people will be 100% automated by 2035. If not, they will be augmented. So technology will definitely replace certain categories of jobs, but it will also create new jobs. If you don't know how to use these new technologies, you will be in trouble. I think government has to seriously look at reskilling and upskilling certain categories, including government workers, if you have to deal with the challenges that are brought forward by new technologies.
Well, Mr. Technology, Damika Pereira, won't be affected because he's got all these schools going now, hasn't he? All these
so
universities.
what we heard, when these little kids go through those programs, they can't go for an internship because of our labor laws. So we're in the process of changing that. Probably they can.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much, Shan Yahampath. I've been enjoyed talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Faraz.
That's the way it is on Newsline today. It's now time for the primetime news, which is presented by Mariam and Charlene tonight. But not before I say, have a great evening as much as you can. Take care and God bless you.
TV1, TV for life.
The Minister of Public Security has issued a statement on those who wish to take the law